Hey, back in the lounge today where we're talking about everyday carry knives and the things you might want to consider before your next knife purchase, in addition to some things to think about before your first knife purchase. So a couple weeks ago, we took a look at 12 different everyday carry knives, and I'll link to that video in the description. And that video showcased a variety of knife styles. Today, we're diving a bit deeper, and the intent for this video was to make a resource that would have been helpful to me when I knew very little about knives. So we'll be delving into some more practical insights and categories based on my own hands-on experience. So I'll begin with a discussion of unofficial knife categories. And the first category we'll be looking at is large knives. And this category of knife constitutes knives for those who want some heft and need a knife they can really put to work. I would consider a large knife to be one that has over about a 3¼ inch blade. And this is going to be on the larger end of what could reasonably be considered everyday carry. It will tend to be on the heavier side and one that you can really get your whole hand around. The Impulse Mini here from Vero is a good example of this type of knife. And this is a blade that you can use with your work gloves on. And in direct contrast to large knives, the next category is small knives. And I would consider small knives to be those with a blade length below 2½ inches. These are convenient, portable, and perfect for smaller, lightweight, everyday tasks. They're the kind of knives that are very good for pocket carry. Due to the size, however, they can be a little cumbersome to work with. They may be difficult to operate with one hand, and depending on what you require, you may be under-leveraged for certain types of tasks. So that's the small knife category. The next category is the high-end knife category. And this category aims to capture those knives that are made from higher quality steels, material, and are just generally well put together and of high quality. These knives often come with high-end handles, like titanium. They're made of premium blade steels like M390 or Damascus. And they're going to be expensive and probably not your first choice if you are buying your first EDC knife. The Synapse Mini here is a good example of this type of knife, arguably the WeKnife Elementum. Again, a good example of a high-end knife made from high-end materials. Other companies like Chris Reeve also make knives in this category as well. And then for an antithesis to the high-end knife category, there are also cheap knives. And these are going to be affordable and easily replaceable. The catch here is to not buy something that is so cheap it's worthless or unpleasant to use. But knives in this category are still very useful. A knife that you can easily replace or beat up can be really nice to have for certain types of situations. If it falls off the side of a fishing boat, falls out of your pocket on the trail, it won't break the bank. So when you're camping or when you're fishing, you don't always need to bring your favorite knife. You just need something that works well enough. And then finally, my favorite category of knife is the all-purpose EDC knife. And this category of knife is your versatile knife that covers basic daily needs. The idea being here, a knife that is easy to carry and suits a wide range of tasks. The sweet spot is a blade length of about 2½ to maybe a hair over 3 inches, maybe 3.2 inches. A perfect example of this type of knife is the Civivi Elementum. And so those are some general categories I think of when it comes to knives. To cover all of your bases, it's nice to have knives from different categories. And of the 5 that I mentioned, there are the all-purpose knife, the cheap knife, and the small knife are the most useful for my lifestyle. And then having the option to rotate as needed is just very convenient. Beyond those categories, it's helpful to have a little bit of an idea of the features and concepts you'll quickly run into as you start shopping around. So I want to cover 4 of those, and I'll talk first about the features that are most likely to influence price. And starting first with blade material. If you're shopping around, you'll encounter many different types of steels. There's D2, there's Sandvik, there's CPM, there's M390, and each steel is going to have its own rating on corrosion resistance, on edge retention, on hardness. If you're looking for an in-depth conversation about specific blade steels, that will have to be a different video. But for now, we'll say that for the everyday user, the difference between what would be considered an average steel like D2 and then a higher end steel like M390 is probably going to be inconsequential. But for the knife connoisseur, especially people who are shopping in the higher end knife category, that difference is going to be more significant. So in addition to blade materials, handles also come in a variety of options. Common ones you're likely to come across are G10, titanium, various steel alloys, and micarta. Titanium tends to be more pricey, while materials like G10 and stainless steel tend to be more affordable. And then you've got materials like micarta, which is typically more expensive than G10. And if you don't know what micarta is, I suggest looking up some DIY micarta videos. It's kind of interesting and giving me a new appreciation for this particular material. Now keep in mind, if you're in slick environments, you may prefer a scaled or textured handle common in G10 and micarta handles. Now overall, there's more to it than just materials that drive cost. There's complexity of design, the origin of manufacturing, quality and precision in the manufacturing process. All of that plays a role. And then to round things out, I want to quickly mention opening mechanisms. Common types include flipper tabs, thumb studs, button locks, and blade nicks or notches. If you're particular about the way your blade opens, it could be annoying if you buy a knife with an opening mechanism you don't like. But more often than not, a thumb stud or a flipper tab is going to be just fine. Now, many knives are going to have a couple different options for you, like this one here, where you've got both a thumb stud and a flipper tab at the top. And one important thing to note is the presence of ceramic balls or bearings in the opening mechanism. It makes all the difference in the world, especially if you want one-handed operation. It's the difference between this and something like that. So keep that in mind. And then the last thing I'll mention is blade shape. Common blade shapes are drop point, clip point, straight back, tanto, and really a bunch of others. And blade shape probably isn't going to be something you need to spend a ton of time thinking about, but it's worth a quick thought and helpful to be aware of a few different types, since some blade shapes may be limiting for certain tasks, just depending on whether you're slicing or puncturing. But most of what you'll come across is going to be quite versatile. My favorite is the drop point style, which is probably one of the more versatile blade shapes out there, and the tanto as well. And that, folks, is as far as I'm willing to go in this video. It certainly hasn't been an exhaustive discussion, but hopefully an informative one. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Thanks for watching.